It's about a 400-pound sleeper, 400 or 500.
That's a big fucking animal.
This is a real Pacific sleeper shark, caught on camera in Alaska waters, the same predator at the center of this mystery. Because for nearly 80 years, something has been surfacing in that lake just long enough to be seen, and gone before anyone can prove what it was. Scientists may have finally found the answer, and what they found is more terrifying than Jaws. A real, documented predator capable of growing 20 feet long, 4 tons heavy, a close relative of a species known to feed on whales and seals, and only recently caught on camera doing something biologists thought was impossible. The word proven needs to be earned here, and by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly how close science actually got. The lake itself. Every monster story eventually gets told in the wrong order. People jump straight to the sighting, the shadow, and skip past the one thing that actually explains how any of it could be possible in the first place: the lake itself. Lake Iliamna is Alaska's largest lake, stretching roughly 75 to 80 miles across a landscape most people never see in their lives. In places, it plunges to nearly 1,000 feet deep, dark water sitting far below anything sunlight ever reaches, deep enough that entire sections of it have simply never been surveyed by anyone at all. That depth alone would be enough to make this lake unusual. But every summer, it becomes something else on top of that. The largest spawning ground for sockeye salmon anywhere in Bristol Bay, and one of the largest anywhere on Earth. Millions of salmon arrive here on a predictable schedule, without fail. Anything large enough to need a massive, reliable food source has exactly that waiting for it, right on time, season after season. None of that even requires a monster to be dangerous either. Winters freeze the lake solid, cracked through with pressure fractures that run for miles across the ice, and people have gone out onto that same ice and simply never come back. No creature required to explain any of it. That's the danger. The size is a separate question. This is a lake deep enough and fed well enough that something living inside it undetected wouldn't be surprising at all. It would almost be expected. The legend before modern sightings ever started, long before any bush pilot ever radioed in a sighting, the people who actually lived along these shores already had a name for what moved through that water, and passing that name down wasn't something they did to pass the time. In Tlingit tradition, it's called Gonakadet. In Aleut tradition, it goes by Jig-Iknak. Two entirely separate indigenous cultures, working with different languages and different histories, and yet both describing something strikingly similar: a large creature capable of attacking canoes outright, sometimes described moving in groups rather than alone. A real danger woven directly into the knowledge parents pass down to their children. That's an important distinction to hold on to, because this wasn't folklore in the sense of a bedtime story invented purely to entertain. Oral tradition like this typically served a much more practical purpose for the people who kept it alive. It encoded real knowledge about which waters were safe to travel and which ones weren't, carried forward by memory alone across generations, long before anyone had written records or maps to fall back on instead. A story doesn't usually survive that intact for that long unless the danger behind it was serious enough to be worth remembering accurately. That still leaves an honest line worth drawing carefully. None of this proves a creature actually lives in Lake Iliamna, and it shouldn't be stretched to claim that it does. What it does prove is something different and easy to overlook. Awareness that something dangerous lived in these specific waters didn't begin in the 1940s, when a pilot first happened to look down and notice something in the water below. That awareness was already here, generations deep, long before modern sightings. That's the deeper history sitting underneath the legend. What happened next is what actually pulled this story out of oral tradition entirely and into the modern historical record for the very first time. The modern sightings. Starting in the late 1940s, bush pilots and fishermen began reporting sightings with real regularity, describing massive dark shapes moving fast beneath the surface, visible just long enough to register before vanishing. Again, what makes these accounts hard to dismiss outright isn't any single sighting. It's the pattern across all of them. Witnesses separated by years, with no connection to each other at all, kept independently landing on the same rough estimate, somewhere between 10 and 30 feet long, again and again, close enough across so many unrelated accounts that coincidence alone starts to feel like a stretch. One account in particular shows exactly what these sightings actually looked like on the ground. On an August morning in 2003, near the village of Kokonok, 7 people stood together at the shoreline, watching in near silence. A massive, dark fin cut across the water roughly 350 to 400 feet out, moving steadily toward a point of land. They watched it for about 15 minutes straight, gliding across water flat and calm enough that nothing else could explain what they were seeing, before it finally sank back down into deep water and disappeared completely. It's a genuine, detailed eyewitness account, and it deserves to be taken seriously as a first-hand account. But a first-hand account is exactly what it remains, not confirmed evidence, no matter how vivid or consistent the description. The seriousness with which this mystery has been treated shows up in a different way too. In 1980, the Anchorage Daily News put real money behind the question, offering a $100,000 reward for definitive proof of the creature's existence. That reward has never been claimed, not once, in the decades since. Eyewitness accounts and unclaimed rewards make for a compelling mystery. But mysteries eventually attract people trying to actually explain them. And by the time scientists started taking this one seriously, they didn't just have one theory to work with. They had several, each one worth examining honestly before settling on which one actually holds up. The competing theories. Before any single explanation gets to claim the spotlight, it's worth laying out every serious theory side by side, because the honest version of this story doesn't jump straight to one tidy answer. 3 separate candidates have real scientific and local backing, and each one deserves a fair hearing before deciding which one actually fits. The first is the giant white sturgeon theory, and it comes up constantly for good reason. Sturgeon are real, ancient fish capable of growing to genuinely enormous sizes, with a long, bony-plated body that could easily explain a dark, uneven shape moving just beneath the surface. If an unusually large or unusually old sturgeon has been living undetected in a lake this deep, that alone could account for a real share of the sightings on its own. Freshwater or migratory harbor seals offer a completely different explanation, one built less around size and more around simple mistaken identity from a distance. Seen from far enough away, moving through choppy water, a seal's rounded head and dark, glistening body could easily read as something much larger and stranger than what it actually is, especially to someone glancing quickly from a moving boat or plane. Then there's a theory local guides mention with a shrug rather than a straight face: an unusually large rainbow trout cruising back toward the Kvichak River after a good season of feeding. It's a real fish, capable of growing bigger than people expect in a lake. This rich with salmon runs, but it comes nowhere close to the size witnesses have consistently described, which is exactly why nobody, including the people who bring it up, actually pushes it as a serious answer. None of these theories deserve to be dismissed outright before they're actually considered. Each one is grounded in a real, living species, capable of at least partially explaining what people have seen. but none of them fully accounts for everything witnesses have described. Consistent size estimates far beyond any known sturgeon or trout, and sustained surface movement lasting whole minutes rather than a quick, easily missed glimpse. Which is exactly why one particular theory has pulled ahead of the rest, not because it's the most exciting, but because it's the one that actually holds up best against the physical evidence. The Pacific sleeper shark hypothesis. The theory that's actually pulled ahead of the rest didn't come from a folklorist or a tourist with a camera. It came from a working scientist with real credentials in exactly this field, and his case rests on more than a hunch. Bruce Wright is a biologist at the Aleutian Pribilof Islands Association in Anchorage, and the author of 2 books directly relevant to this exact question: Ecology and Conservation of Alaska's Predators and Alaska's Great White Sharks. In 2012, he proposed something nobody else had seriously floated before: that Pacific sleeper sharks might be traveling up the Kvichak River from Bristol Bay straight into the deep water of Lake Iliamna. The physical case for that theory is genuinely strong. Pacific sleeper sharks found in Alaska can reach up to 20 feet long and weigh as much as 4 tons, making them true apex predators across the North Pacific and Arctic. A lake this deep and reliably packed with salmon every single summer isn't just survivable for an animal like that. It's close to ideal. But Wright didn't oversell his own theory. He was direct about the biggest problem with it. Sleeper sharks aren't known to surface during the day, which creates real tension with multiple eyewitness accounts describing something breaking the surface in broad daylight. Rather than explain that contradiction away, Wright acknowledged it directly and stated his plan to personally search the lake that summer to find out whether sleeper sharks actually lived there at all. It's worth being fully honest about one more thing too. Wright himself hasn't treated this as a closed case, even by his own theory. More recent reporting shows he's also raised a giant northern pike, a genuinely large, aggressive freshwater predator fish capable of growing several feet long, as a possible alternative explanation. That's a reminder that even the scientist who proposed the shark theory still treats it as one strong possibility among several, not a settled answer he's fully committed to. What happened next, though, is what actually gave this specific theory more weight than any other explanation on the table. What makes this species genuinely more unsettling? Set the mystery aside for a moment, because the sleeper shark itself doesn't need any embellishment to be genuinely unsettling. Real biology alone does the work. Start with how it actually hunts. A sleeper shark doesn't chase down its prey the way a great white does. Instead, it draws prey directly into an enormous mouth using suction, then slices apart anything too large to swallow whole, performing a distinct rolling motion of the head while it feeds, a behavior scientists have specifically documented and recorded. And it never announces any of this beforehand. These animals can glide through water using almost no body movement at all, producing barely any noise from the water displacing around them, which makes them exceptionally good at approaching prey that never hears them coming. What they're actually capable of eating is where the real shock sits. In one study conducted on Greenland sharks near Svalbard, a species closely related to the Pacific sleeper shark, researchers found remains of seals, animals most people don't picture as shark prey at all, in roughly a third of the non-empty stomachs they examined, and whale remains in nearly a fifth of them. Put those two figures together, and well over half the sharks studied showed direct evidence of marine mammal prey inside them. But it's worth being precise about what that evidence actually proves and what it doesn't. It tells you exactly what this species is physically capable of hunting and consuming. It says nothing at all about any attack on a human being, and none exists anywhere in the record here. The real fear this animal earns isn't built on a body count. It's built on quiet, unnoticed capability. An animal that can approach something as large as a seal or a whale without ever being detected, doing it in near total silence. And as unsettling as all of that already is on paper, one single event in 2012 turned this from an interesting biological profile into something that directly changed the entire Iliamna investigation. The behavior nobody expected, everything scientists thought they knew about this species, ran into a direct contradiction on a single afternoon in 2012. And unlike every Iliamna sighting before it, this one was caught entirely on camera. It happened on the summer solstice, the longest day of the year, in King Cove Lagoon, a shallow body of brackish water, a mix of fresh and salt water on the Alaska coast. A Pacific sleeper shark was spotted rolling and thrashing right at the surface in broad daylight in water shallow enough for a person to stand in. The whole thing was filmed and posted online. Real footage anyone can still watch today. The man who found it, Chris Babcock, described something even stranger than the sighting itself. The shark actually approached him directly when he entered the shallow water, before eventually turning and retreating toward deeper water on its own. That's not a documented behavior for this species. It had never been reported before, not once, in any scientific account of Pacific sleeper sharks. Bruce Wright, the same biologist behind the Iliamna hypothesis, wrote about the incident himself, and his own words capture exactly why it mattered so much. Every time you have a close look at this species, it surprises you. Those aren't spoken remarks pulled from an interview. They're his own published words, written under his own byline, reacting to footage that directly upended one of the field's basic assumptions about how this animal behaves. That assumption mattered more than it might seem at first. It had been the single biggest scientific objection standing between the sleeper shark theory and Lake Iliamna's daytime sightings. Sleeper sharks simply weren't supposed to come up to the surface during the day, let alone in water this shallow. But King Cove showed, on camera, that one of them did exactly that. The strongest argument against the theory didn't just weaken that day. It effectively disappeared. What happened after that discovery is where the actual scientific investigation into Lake Iliamna picked up, and it's also exactly where the honest limits of what's actually been proven come into full view. The actual search for proof. That search did happen. In 2019, a real investigation launched specifically to settle the question, using DNA testing of water samples, a method that can detect genetic traces animals leave behind even without anyone actually seeing them, alongside underwater video equipment deployed to capture whatever might be moving through the lake's deep water. This is the point in the story where honesty matters more than momentum. Nothing in the record confirms a result from that search. But the question it was designed to answer remains open, without a clear yes or no ever surfacing publicly about whether sleeper sharks were actually detected living in the lake. That's not a disappointing place to end up. It's just the truthful one. Science doesn't always wrap up on schedule, and this investigation has already earned something real without needing a tidy finish. A credible scientist chasing a physically capable predator, backed by one documented moment on camera that quietly removed the biggest reason anyone had to doubt the theory in the first place. Nobody has proven a sleeper shark lives in Lake Iliamna. What science has proven is that the leading theory just got far harder to dismiss. A real behavior nobody expected from an animal that was never supposed to show it. Whatever is still moving through that water, it's been avoiding proof for 80 years and counting.